minutes, 45 minutes. I'll just say we are 2 years old now, or 2 years in Lansing now, so we moved into this building 2 years ago. And the Fledge, coincidentally, is also 5 years old. So we were in Grand Ledge 3 years before this. So we're still a child. We're still, just getting into kindergarten right now. So we've got a long way to go. So thank you all for coming. I think this is an interesting project, and we really want to support getting people out telling their story. I keep saying no story is too big or too small, and when you look out, 50 years, someone, searches on homelessness and they hear Chris's story, or they search on, making cupcakes, it's not going to necessarily be as mundane as it might seem today, because 50 years from now, the way we do stuff today is going to be very interesting to people, I think. So thank you all for coming. Please sign up. Please let your friends know they should sign up.
Okay, I'm going to break the fourth wall just real quick to just fill you in on some of the process of how we get to where we are. So StoryCorps has a facilitator. That's me. My main goal of the facilitators, I do sit in on the interview, but I'm monitoring the recording equipment to make sure the sound quality is as good as possible. And I'm also jotting down some keywords of things that they talk about. So if they talk about a place, I think the Fledge will probably be listed on here. People, events, I make notes of that. So that's what I'll be doing. But before we even get to the point where we're at the table, the first thing we do, so the recording is 40 minutes, but the whole experience is probably close to an hour, because what you'll do is you'll come in, you'll sit down with me or another facilitator. We have a data sheet, which is basic demographic stuff that we ask people to fill out. It's also where we get an email address, because StoryCorps will email a copy of the recording to participants. And then we kind of explain a little bit about, we tell them, we're going to go into this conversation. After it's over, we can talk about whether you want to release it to the Library of Congress, the Archives of Michigan, or whether after you know what you talked about, if you decide that nobody should ever hear this. I will tell you that has not happened. But you never know what's going to come up, and some people may not be comfortable. So we don't talk about that until the recording's over. I do have them fill out this little cue card here, which we'll use when they start the interview. They will each take turns reading the card off, and then they'll jump into their conversation. And then afterwards, I'll take a photo of this card, because as you saw, it's so nice when you're hearing these interviews to see a picture of the people that are talking, right? So we like to take photos of each person individually and the people together, which StoryCorps archives with the recordings. So I think that's it. Do you gentlemen have any questions about the process before we get started?
Nope.
All right, so what I'm going to do, because the last thing we do before we hit record is I have to do a sound check just to make sure I've got my recording levels. Jerry, you're good with your introduction. But David, if you could tell Jerry what you had for lunch today.
I had some spaghetti squash with sausages from Clorox for lunch today. Gross.
All right, now if you both could do me a favor, if you ever listen to the radio and sometimes you hear people say peas and it blows out the thing, so I always have them say, Jerry, did you say pepperoni pizza?
Pepperoni pizza.
Good. David, did you say pepperoni?
Pepperoni pizza.
Okay, we're good. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to, so you guys have up to 40 minutes. You can stop early if you want, but it sounds like you've got plenty of stuff to talk about today. So what you'll do is just ignore me, talk to each other, pretend I and they aren't in the room. And when you get to 30 minutes, I'll hold my hands up like this to show you got 10 minutes left. I'll give you a 5 minute, I'll give you a 2 minute. When we get close to the end, wrap up. People usually, we find story correspondence very effective at the very end if people just take a moment to stop and thank each other or say whatever. It's just a really nice way to end the interview if you want. But if you don't have any questions, I'm going to push record and then we'll start. I'll start. Jerry, you'll start reading your card first, then I'll kick it over to David, and then we'll go.
Okay.
You ready?
My name is Jerry Norris. I'm 53 years old. It is March 7th, 2020. We are at the Fledge in Lansing, Michigan, and I am with my friend David.
My name is David Smith. I'm 38 years old. It's March 7th. We're at the Fledge, and this is my good friend Jerry. And he's an inspiration to me and a mentor. Okay, Jerry, ready to kick this off?
Yep, let's go.
Okay, can you guys do me a favor? Can you guys all stand up and give Jerry a big round of applause for me? Can you guys do that for me? Love all these people, right?
Yes, I do.
And we're here at the Fledge. But let's go back to your early years. What did 10-year-old Jerry want to be when he grew up?
It's the thing I always said I wanted to be was a window washer. I wanted to go way up high on these things, these rigs, and I wanted to stand up there and I wanted to wash windows and I wanted to be, a risk taker. I wanted something exciting, and that seemed really, really exciting to me. I loved getting way up into trees and all that, so the window washer job just seemed perfect.
Did you ever do it?
No, I never did. Well, I washed a lot of windows, especially buying a 93-year-old church with tons of beautiful windows. But no, I never went way up there and did that.
How has your life been different from how you imagined it would be as a child?
I don't know. I think that there were points when I went through, when I played football, when I wrestled, when I thought I was going to be, famous or rich or something like that. I'm not as rich as I thought I might have been, nor as famous. So I think that's different. I also think that, I always imagined owning a company, and I imagined it being always tech. And I think now my life's really evolved into a more social entrepreneur view and wanting to do a lot more with people and a lot more, kind of one-on-one stuff, not always trying to communicate with 10 million people at one time.
What got you interested in tech early on?
I don't know. Sometimes I tell the story that it was almost forced on me. The other thing was I just lived in a great time to be growing up, I thought, because so many things were starting to come at us with like the first computers and cable TV and eventually phones in a bag that plugged into a cigarette lighter in your car. I just think I was kind of exposed to it early. My dad bought me a computer when I was about 10 years old. He told me, I was going to wrestle and go to college and study computer science, and wrestling was going to pay for the college. And that all kind of happened. And so it seemed destined at some level, maybe a little forced. But math was where it was at for me, still is today.
A math nerd.
Yes.
Who had the biggest influence on you growing up?
Growing up, I would have to say it was probably more a mob of people. It was my wrestling teams. It was the Capital City Wrestling Club, which my dad started and grew to one of the biggest wrestling clubs in Michigan. And then we kind of broke away and started the Sunshine Wrestling Club about a block and a half away from where we're sitting right now in Lansing Eastern's wrestling room. And so those teammates, it was always, they had the most influence growing up. And then after I sort of grew up, or as I started growing up, it has to be Shannon, it has to be my wife.
And that's a lot of people. It's everybody.
Yeah.
And you talk about, you imagine owning a tech company. How did you get interested in entrepreneurial activities? Did somebody inspire you?
I didn't really know it was called entrepreneurial activities when I first started out. I mean, I think I posted on Facebook a couple weeks ago that I used to pick the flowers in the townhomes that we lived in and then sell them to the ladies whose garden I had picked them out of. And that's really the first time I remember somebody paying me. And kind of being proud of it, not really realizing I was stealing because, I don't know, it was kind of like it was townhouses, it was, public housing, everything was kind of fair game. But then, I sold seeds door to door. I did a lot with Boy Scouts, and there was always selling something with them. I mowed lawns. I did some things that we'll call them off the books, that got me through some of my high school days. So, yeah.
Oh man, I really want to learn more about those off the books activities. I bet you learned a lot of lessons there.
Yeah, that some risks aren't worth taking, that some risks are more stressful than others, that risk is not a thing that is automatic. There's two parts of risk, the potential consequence and the probability that it's going to happen. And managing risk, you don't have to, we've got this coronavirus coming at all of us right now. We don't have to panic. We don't have to expose ourselves to all that risk. We can reduce probabilities. So I think that, the off-the-book stuff taught me that maybe the most.
What are the biggest lessons that you took from childhood into adulthood?
Well, I didn't know it at the time, but on reflection of especially where I'm at today, that everything I ever did was through other people. So, I was successful at wrestling because of my teammates and my coaches. I was successful at school because of my teachers. I was successful at making good choices most of the time because of the mentors that surrounded me. And I was very, very lucky to have the opportunity to meet all of these people and have them cheering for me. I mean, I'm not starting, but have started the hashtag Lansing Raised Me, that Lansing raised me 100%.
And that must have been special. Your dad told you you're going to wrestle and that's going to pay for your college, and then that happened.
Yeah, I mean, it never was not going to happen. It didn't seem like a choice. It didn't seem like, how could I go to a great school and pay for this when we're living in Section 8 housing on the south side of Lansing. I didn't understand about financial aid and things like that too, but it didn't seem at the time that he said it that I would even know, if I would be wrestling a week later. But it just built and built and built, and it happened. And the only thing that changed is in my sophomore year, I switched from computer science to math and statistics.
I was thinking too, if my dad told me, hey, you're going to do this, and this is going to predict the future, if my dad had done that and it came true, I think that would leave me with some special feelings. Did you feel that?
No, I've never really thought about it, I guess. It just was, I don't know, it wasn't a choice. It just was weird. It was dogma. It was what was going to happen, and that's the way I thought about it, and that's what I did, and that's what everyone around me thought was going to happen, and that's what they did.
I'm wondering too, if since that happened, and it just seemed like it was going to happen, if your other dreams, being famous and being a business owner, being a pro athlete, if it seemed like that was going to happen too?
Oh yeah, I mean, at some level, it seemed mapped out. It seemed like, then you graduate from college and you get a job with a good salary and you work for a company for you know, in his case, he wanted me to like go work for the state, and he worked for the state for 32 years. My stepmom worked for the state for 30 some years. My grandparents, we've got hundreds of years in the state of Michigan. And, you know, that, I think that was his dream, and where we parted was, I could not imagine working at the same place for that long, you know, without, I don't know, challenging myself, doing creative things. And so my ambition in college turned to definitely entrepreneurship and just starting getting gigs, doing statistics, whether it was tutoring people or research assistants for postdocs or, you know, whatever I could do to make money with math. That was, I became obsessed with that in between 84 and 88.
Can you describe, so where are we now? We're at the Fledge. How do you describe the Fledge?
Sometimes it really changes by the audience and who I guess I'm talking to, because to some people it's a place to come and find refuge and to work on your sobriety. For some people it's a place to come and try to discover who you are. For some people, it's a sanctuary that you can walk into the middle of and you can scream any label that you want to put on yourself that you're not comfortable with somewhere else. But at the same time, we've got this business twist. We've got this thing we want to do within innovation, and they helping people be enabled and empowered to take their life in their hands. And, you know, so our incubator strategy is to, you know, help people get equitable again and to find opportunity and to see real believable opportunity and then connect them.
And what is a Fledge to you?
To me, I guess it's a place where I can find all of those things. It's my kind of, I guess, it's my hospital, it's my therapy session, it's my education.
How did you go from math and computers to the Fledge and this social entrepreneurship? How did you get here?
Well, my first big job, you know, the big salary job, was working for the Unisys Corporation in 1988. And I had already started a consulting company where I was, you know, providing consulting for statistics. And when I was at Unisys, you know, in my series of very lucky events, I was assigned to work with this quality engineer who was a retired engineer from NASA, and he's a guy that his name is sketched on a part that they left on the moon, and that was impressive to me. And he had a lot of influence over me because he wasn't a college grad, he wasn't, you know, everything that everyone was trying to be. I mean, those were really materialistic times. We were really, you know, scared of getting a nuclear bomb, you know, shot at us at any moment, you know, the big war with the USSR and all that. And he told me to read this document called ISO 9000, and I went home and read it that night, and I came back and started implementing it within my job the next day. And at that point, there were about 100 auditors in the world. There were about 212 companies certified at that, you know, to the standard. And within a year, I was the youngest certified auditor in the world, and I was a leading expert at the whopping age of 22 years old. And I started really studying systems. I got lucky again. I got to work with Motorola when they were forming Six Sigma. So I had this other really geeky technical thing that fell into my lap. And later on, I would get exposed to the Toyota production system that Toyota kind of launched as the thing that started lean manufacturing, lean software development, and lean startups eventually. And in doing all of this, I watched 150,000 employees at Unisys go to 40,000 in 5 years. I watched a man who ironically is my age now, or what I am now. He was 53 years old, only ever worked at Unisys. The security escorted him out as they were laying him off. He was crying, and I resigned within 3 days. Didn't quite have a job in Grand Rapids, but I had an interview, and I thought I could nail the interview and get the job, so I just resigned and nailed the job and got the interview and moved to Grand Rapids, and got lucky again because a man named Fred Keller, who became my next kind of big mentor, was doing a lot of work with people like a welfare to work and people getting out of prison, and he was interested in water quality, and he hired me to turn his company around, and it only took me about 8 months to do that. And so I did what he thought it would take about 5 years, and so I started working on my consulting company more and put the management system stuff into it, and tried to resign from Cascade Engineering. And he asked me to stay and start an incubator with them called the Center for Excellence or Center for Innovation, one of those two. And I did that for a couple of years, and I incubated my own company out of the incubator I created, and that was in about 97. And that was my first exposure that I don't have to build products and software. I could build companies that build products and software, and I could build a machine that could build this machine. And so I started studying a lot of chaos theory and sustainability and recursion and biomimicry, and I started trying to figure out what the next economy was going to look like. What was the internet going to do? And how did this economy of information and this economy of CNN, we used to just have 3 channels, then they gave us cable, and then they gave us CNN, and in CNN, you had 17 things on the screen, and I started to understand it was an economy of attention, not an economy of information, and just started seeing that this is going to be powerful and this is going to be gross, because we're going to sell people things they don't need really, really fast. And I stopped wanting to work in the automotive industry. I stopped wanting to help people, scale up in these crazy ways. And I know you and I can differ in this sometimes, but, I didn't want to be in the consumer world. I didn't want to help with that. I wanted to do something that was more impactful, but I was kind of trapped. I had this destiny, and I was in the business world, and I was wearing a suit, and I was an auditor, and I was going all over the place, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to create. I didn't want to turn people into components and run through the system and have them spit out as well-trained employees or kids that can weld or do IT or whatever the next big corporation tells our school district to make for them. And I don't know, I started getting angry, and I went off to do JDN, and we kind of woke up one day and realized we're not a consulting company, we're a software company, and we're not prepared for this. So we were bought, we merged with a software company that was ready for it, but I completely disagreed with everything they did from day one, so I rebelling against that. And then 9/11 happened, and the economy really crashed. The bubble burst on the internet stuff and all of that, but the economy crashed on us after 9/11, and within about a year, maybe a lot less, maybe, we got a call from Dubai, and they had heard about this probabilistic risk model that I was working on to help with mitigating risk and managing compliance to things. And they asked me to come over and talk to them, and I flew over there for the first time, and I was competing with SAP, Microsoft, and Oracle to do this big food safety system for them, and they fell in love with us, and we won. And I started a big project in Dubai where, started basically commuting to Dubai, there for 2 weeks, home for 4 to 6 weeks, back and forth and back and forth. And all this time, Shannon and I had been married for a few years. We had our daughter in 1999, and then our son in 2001, so they were very young. And I'm flying to the Middle East, and it's not at the most appropriate time, maybe, or the safest time, some people would think. And to me, I started seeing the racism coming, and it just pissed me off. And I just wanted to get over there, and I wanted to understand, what this culture was, and who these people were, and what these cities were like. And it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. But we did that for a while, and while that was happening, the company that we had merged with went bankrupt, and we got together and bought everything back from a bank and started building the company again, and sold that in 2014 to a company in Chicago, started a software company the next day, and tried to do that for a while, and I was not into it at all. And all this time, I'm looking at music and art and thinking about tech and thinking how they're separate things, how the school districts are, making us do computers but getting rid of art and music, and then seeing that the economies that are coming at us are creative economies. We need the arts, we need the music, we need the tech, we need it. Those are all fundamental skills we all should have. And why am I starting another software company? And why am I thinking about leaving my family that I've been leaving so aggressively for 14 years? I got to figure out something else. And, we were fighting with the city of Grand Ledge about raising chickens and about skateboarding, and we were doing skate park concerts, and Shannon started my skateboard club, or my skate club, and we met all the punk rock kids and all the kids that wanted to grow up to do booking companies, and all the skaters, and we started Your Mom Skateboard, and my son Rain was a CEO when he was about 11 years old. We had a shop downtown, and it started to, in Dubai, we took sunstroke deaths in their construction industry from 678 a year down to 2. And that felt great, and that still goes on today, and we have saved, with the work that we did, thousands and thousands of people. But there was always something missing because it was way over there. And the high school that I graduated from is a half away from us. The hospital that I was born in is a block and a half away from where I live. But all of my work and all the impact we were having was not here. And Shannon is a teacher, and just the nightmare of watching the school district degrade and watching the crime happen here. I just kept thinking, why am I going there when there's so much to do here? And when, you know, the Grand Ledge Alliance for the Quality Community, I told them I want to start this Center for Innovation. I didn't quite call it an incubator yet. And, you know, Keith Mulder, who people that are, you know, the modern day fledglings, they don't even know who this is, but he gave us the space at a very fair rent, and we worked out of Grand Ledge out of that space for 3 years. And, you know, again, another lucky mentor, another lucky time that something happens. And what we started seeing is that if you tell people we want to help you with your dreams, and we're not going to charge you anything to do that, and we don't care what you want to do, we're going to say yes to you, that felt good too. And it felt better. It felt better because what I started seeing was the more people that we were helping, the more people were helping others. And the network effect, you and I know what it is, but it's when you join Facebook, and every person that joins Facebook, it becomes more valuable to every other person that's already on Facebook. I thought that was an economy of attention things. I thought it was a computer thing, and I started seeing it physically. And I started seeing the freemium model work, and I started seeing people make money and offer that money back. So you could trust people to pay, even if you didn't tell them that that's what needed to happen. They would, for the right cause, for the right mission, they would pay for it when the time was appropriate to pay for it. And that was significant because that then let me know that one, what we were providing was valuable to people, and two, that people given an opportunity, the first time they see abundance, they understand. And it changes them, and they're willing to do that with other people. And the model just started working, and it was amazing. And today, that feels better than I'd never get on an airplane again if we didn't want to escape to Costa Rica or something.
Now, when you describe that story, you make it sound easy, like it was just one thing after another, and you were traveling tens of thousands of miles away, thousands of miles away, you're away from your family, you wanted to start something where you don't charge anybody. Sounds hard to me. It sounds like there's was it as easy as it sounds?
It was impossible.
What was the hardest?
The days when people who you're trying to help steal from you, and being able to forgive them, and to realize if you're in that position where that's how you have to do it, we did that to you. You know, you weren't born like that. You know, the baby in the room today, he wasn't born, you know, to be bad. Look at him, he's so happy and smiling and all that. But we do this to people. We knock them off tilt. We force them to be people they don't want to be. We force them to grow up to be something they weren't born to be. Nobody gets to be a window washer anymore or something like that.
Was there a toll on your family too when you're traveling overseas and you're not seeing the impacts here? The toll on you financially and mentally?
Yeah. I mean, our marriage was very, very tough. I mean, she raised not only our biological kids, but my older daughter, Shannon had to raise her alone. And this is a daughter who is addicted to heroin and who is eventually going to die of a fentanyl overdose. This is, missing so many important events and being so exhausted from, working in the morning there and the night here and traveling so many miles. I can't remember all the things I should be remembering. I wasn't there for things that I should have been there for. It was a lot. It was impossible.
How did you get through it?
One, the three people that make the Fledge happen every day are Shannon, Raven, and Rain. They forgave me. They helped me. They supported me. And they sacrificed too. And when you're trying to do something really risky as an entrepreneur, you're taking everybody down with you. They're all putting their chips in the table.
You started the Fledge at Grand Ledge, and you moved it to Lansing 2 years ago. I felt like when you did that, I feel like you put everything into it. I feel like you put your heart, your soul. I feel like you poured financially into this. And I've seen you here every day, 24/7. It seems like to me.
Yeah. The Grand Ledge did for us, it kind of proved we could do it. And it proved that a community would engage, and it proved that they would build something that was relevant to them, that could help them. And when we got to Lansing, Daniela had just died, shortly before that. We started seeing more people, that were struggling with substance use. We were seeing more homelessness. We were seeing more crime. We were seeing violence and people getting abused and people abusing people. And immediately the pattern emerged to me, what I think is causing all of this. And to me, there's a lot of us out there doing things we don't want to be doing because we're subjugated to debt and other responsibilities. And if we don't help people recalibrate and restore equity that's been taken from people and give every single person a chance, we're going to have a lot of people off tilt. And they're going to fill that gap with drugs and alcohol and violence and depression and suicide. And you name a social ill, to me it traces right to that gap of, I wanted to do this, but I have to do this.
When you say impossible, I feel like I've seen you, and I feel that impossibility, and I see it turning around. And did you ever think about quitting?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know what was the hardest time. When we got shot, and we had 130 people in this room, and 238s go through our front door, through the path of where somebody was sitting not 30 seconds earlier, and then to have the police on us and the neighborhood on us, and everybody just acting like we were the ones that did it. And the police taking 15 minutes to get here when I said on 911 call that we had an active shooter in the building, because that's what we thought. That was weird. And then the neighborhood, get rid of the Fledge, get rid of the Fledge. When crime was going down around, a radius around us, people from the neighborhood were using the Fledge every day. What the hell are you talking about? Get rid of the Fledge. How did we become this evil monster? And why are you this. That was so discouraging, but the mission's too big and the promises are too much, so you can't stop.
What do you see as the vision now?
That the Fledge, myself, and an army of people are helping ourselves and other people see opportunity to pursue happiness, find ways to get propped up and given resources or education or fair chances or connection to commerce in a way that is doable and relevant to us. And it gets big fast, and things happen fast. When we want to do something, there's an army, and they do it.
You think the Fledge will just stay here in Lansing?
I think we'll start replicating very soon. I think it's percolating right now, and that there's a lot of places that are primed for this. And so I think we're going to see them start popping up, and we want to replicate fast, and we got to figure out how to do that.
What do you dream about now? Like, what does the ultimate success look like for you with the Fledge? Maybe in practical terms, like paint a picture of it. What can people like see and feel and touch?
Well, one is we get feedback all the time. Like the street nurses from Vancouver came and presented their movie, and when they were talking, they said there ought to be one of these on every corner. And I don't mean a Jerry and a church and all of that, but what I do mean is, let's call it a recalibration center, where people can recalibrate to what that dream is that they have. And I'd like to see 10,000 Fledges helping communities in a relevant way all over the world, because you can't buy a Boston solution and plop it in a Lansing problem. The communities, they know the causes, they know what they can sustain, they need to solve the problems, but they need spaces and tools and resource and connection to do that. So give us a bunch of churches and a bunch of people willing to do something about this, and let the people do what they did. This place is beautiful. This ain't my place anymore.
I love this place. When you talk about 10,000 Fledges, a Fledge on every corner, what kind of impact would that have? What kind of change would that be in the world?
Well, if we're right, which I think we are, we're getting more and more data that's supporting it. I think that it empowers people to stop buying their future from, the big tech companies on the coast and start creating their future. I mean, how much fun do I have when, somebody's taking apart the old pews and cutting them up into a 13-foot by 8-foot frame and stretching a canvas and making a painting there. That's work, and I gotta clean up and things need to happen, but that's a fun day's work. Your friends are around, the people that you care about are around. It's entertaining, it's educational, and it's productive, and we didn't have to buy shit from Amazon.
Jerry, what do you want to be remembered for?
I don't even think I was joking. I say I was joking, but I used to say that I want the next dominant species on Earth to know me by name. And that was just, I don't know why I got obsessed with that. But I don't want to be remembered. I want a lesson that is impactful to be remembered. Because, my school's going to be gone, my hospital's going to be gone. We get wiped out with the sands of time very, very easily. And it's more important that
you know, people that are struggling remember something that either I said or you said or somebody here said. That's what needs to be remembered, not us people.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, David, and you know, I picked you to do this because of all the work you had done in startup crime, but I also think, you know, you are a skeptic that I converted, and that's been great to watch, and I really love you.
Thank you. I love you too.